Once upon a time, Nintendo had a console more powerful than anything on the market, and it still holds its ground to this day. I am the Game Collector, and this is Second Opinion Games, and today we do a Super Nintendo Showcase.
Second Opinion Games.
The first time I ever got a chance to play the Super Nintendo was in a department store kiosk in the mall. Now they had Mario World, but you could only play for about 10 minutes before the game would reset. Luckily, it had a battery backup in it, so if you managed to clear a castle or beat a ghost house, you could then save the game. And I managed to make it through like 3 worlds at the kiosk and completely hogged it for like 3 hours. Man, I could not get enough Super Mario World. But it wasn't till I got my hands on Super Mario Kart from a friend, borrowing his Super Nintendo, that I convinced my brother that we had to have one. Now, Mario Kart was so much more advanced to the point where they actually had to put an extra chip in the game in order for it just to play, and there's quite a few tricks going on here too, because your character's sprites aren't really scaling, they just sort of pop in bigger and smaller, and the game holds up beautifully, and it definitely started the best kart racing franchise that ever was. Now, luckily for us, at the time we bought our Super Nintendo, it had a special promo going on. We had a little card that we had to fill out and mail in to get our hands on Super Mario All-Stars completely for free. Now, this came without a box, so trying to find a box for this game is pretty much impossible now. It had a more refined version of Super Mario Bros. 3. It had Lost Levels, which was never released here in America. It had a much improved version of Mario 2, complete with the bugs that tend to look up Princess Peach's skirt. I always thought that was kind of weird. And also, the little slot machine minigame is actually skill-based this time around rather than total luck. If you get the timing down just right, I can score some extra lives like crazy. And a completely flavorless version of the original Mario Brothers game. I kind of wish that they left that one untouched, but they kind of wanted to show how it would look with improved graphics, even though they made it look a lot worse. With all of the hype around Mode 7, I decided to give Pilot Wings a try and experience it in all of its glory. This is very much a tech demo wrapped in a Super Nintendo card. It's boring stuff like just trying to land an airplane or skydiving, which is now popular thanks to these Battle Royale games, but back in the day, this is probably the first skydiving game I think I ever played, and it definitely was underused. You could also fly around a jetpack. It's all about landing, and sometimes it felt more like shooting darts than flying anything because of the awkward controls, but they did a decent job with it. But I got to see even more Mode 7 in certain parts of Super Castlevania 4. Now, the music here is what really stands out. With the haunting sound effects and the tunes, it was awesome. Also, Simon Belmont could swing his whip in nearly any direction, and he could even do a little bit of limp whipping. That's pretty cool. And you have special weapons that seem to not be so useful this time around because of your extra whipping skills. But this game does look good, and it was long enough to keep me satisfied for some time. But Konami wasn't the only ones bringing the heat. How about Capcom with Super Ghouls and Ghosts? Yeah, there's a little bit of Super Nintendo slowdown here when the action gets a little bit too frantic, but boy did they ever outshine themselves with a gritty, spooky themed game. There's a ghost pirate ship here, there's tons of different weapons that you can pick up, along with many of suits of armor that just make you feel more powerful as you push through the game. However, you're kind of a paper cannon here, because one little hit and all the armor goes off and you're just in your underwear. However, Arthur here is a beast because of his beard powers, and he can manage to push through anything. If you manage to be good at this game, well then you're pretty much a video game expert. I really love the double jump, and the whole thing feels more like a puzzle game than a platformer. And then I turned to Mega Man X just to push it a little bit more forward. Now, we have tons of bright colors. The music is still unbelievably well done. A perfect intro that teaches you exactly how to play the game, unlike, all the other games that makes it intrusive today. Back then, this is all they had to do to make you satisfied and make you into a master. And there's also something addictive about growing stronger every time you defeat a boss, or find a secret power tank, or even a super secret move that everyone told me was hidden in the game, but I couldn't figure it out until like a decade later when the internet became possible, and I've finally been able to one-shot bosses like crazy. Mega Man X is truly one that stands out amongst the crowd. But what really blew me away was Super Punch-Out! Now, I loved Mike Tyson's Punch-Out, and they just took everything and made it bigger and badder for the Super Nintendo, like we've seen with previous games on this list. And Super Punch-Out really did make everything bigger. The characters here are huge, taking up the whole screen. Your moves feel like they actually have some weight behind them, and when you punch out a character in like 7 seconds, you feel like you have to have the world record. Now I watch people on YouTube beat this game blindfolded and in a faster time than I can ever clear it, and it makes me feel like a total chump. But boy, did I ever feel like the king of the ring with Super Punch-Out! But who could talk about the Super Nintendo without bringing up their RPGs? Now, there are plenty of great ones to go around, but I want to show you Mystic Quest. This is RPG Light. This really got me started playing RPGs, and quite frankly, that's what it was designed to do. Everything's not too heavy. The story is very streamlined. Fighting enemies isn't too bad because if you die, you could just start all over again fighting the same enemy. So there's no real consequences to your actions, and you just get to enjoy the story. Characters jump in and out of your party, and sometimes they die off, and sometimes they come back a little bit later. Mystic Quest is just a perfect starter's RPG. But don't think that this console was not without its controversies, and that's where Uniracers comes in. That's right, this little racing game with a unicycle was at the center of a massive lawsuit because Disney Pixar thought for some reason this unicycle looked too much like one of their cartoon characters. I mean, it's a unicycle. For the love of God, how were they supposed to change it? If they just would have put a bear or a donkey on top of it, or maybe even said that there was a flea and changed a single pixel on top, well, maybe then they could have gotten away with it. But unfortunately, this one was pulled off shelves because it was just way too controversial for all those unicycle lovers. Unlike Mortal Kombat 2, of course, with now all of the blood. Now, they nailed down this version of the game so well that at this point in time, the Super Nintendo started outselling the Genesis because it completely played better than that console's version, and also played better than the 32X version of Mortal Kombat 2, and even the PlayStation 1 version. So this was the perfect home console version of Mortal Kombat 2 to get for at least 20-some years before they have an arcade perfect version to come into your home. And I gotta say, Mortal Kombat 2 was a great game, and I'm not just busting your balls on this one. But as some of these new consoles were starting to hit the market, Nintendo knew that they had to really up their game. And that's when Donkey Kong Country came out. Now, I got to see a preview of this game before quite a few people ever even knew about it because of Super Mario All-Stars. Yeah, that put us on a mailing list, and we received a VHS tape showing and highlighting Donkey Kong Country, and just made us really want it really bad. And boy, did we ever get it that Christmas morning, and it was terrific. I really like the graphics. The minecart levels are awesome, and Donkey Kong Country really shows how far the graphics can be pushed on the Super Nintendo. But one of the best things about the Super Nintendo is that it's the gift that keeps on giving. It wasn't until 10 years later that I'm still finding games that I love playing for the system, like Wild Guns, which I found much too late. Now here there are two cowboys, or a cowboy and a cowgirl, shooting everything in what's called a gallery shooter, and this is probably the best gallery shooter of all times, still being remade on consoles to this very day, just showing you how special the console was. Also, something that many people discovered far too late is Hagane, which I actually played renting it back in the day. Where did I rent it from? Well, it wasn't Blockbuster, it was a mom and pop shop. Now, there's a lot of mystery around the Super Nintendo. Where did this game come out? Was it actually a physical release? I'm really not sure, but I did manage to track down those people that own that mom and pop shop, and they told me that it was a mail order game that they they got from Hudson themselves with a little flyer in the mail. So that's where they got it, but I don't know if it ever got a physical release. Also, this game is like super hard. Imagine Contra, but with a sword instead of a machine gun, and that's how freaking difficult this game is. But because the Super Nintendo was so loved and so special, people still try to create homebrew games to this day, or even try to dig up games from its past, like down deep in its past, like with BS The Legend of Zelda. Now, I have a reproduction card of this game where you could actually play through a Zelda experience with a girl. Now, there is some really cool day mechanics here that you have to complete certain challenges within an hour, and then you move on to the next day with a special combination of buttons, and you have yourself a Zelda experience that not many people have ever tried on one of the best consoles that ever existed. But of course, that's just my opinion. Thanks for watching. Hopefully you guys enjoyed this video. I had a great time making, and the Super Nintendo just might be my favorite console of all times. It did 2D better than pretty much anything else on the market, and it had some of the best games to ever exist, many of which I didn't even come close to talking about in this video. Otherwise, it would have been 4 hours long, and I'm sure some of you guys would have been fine with that because the Super Nintendo is amazing, and many of its games look better than anything on the PlayStation 1 or even the Nintendo 64. And speaking of which, I plan on diving a little bit deeper into the Nintendo 64 in the near future, so if you guys have any ideas of some great games for that console, well, I already have them. I just want you guys to tell me which ones I should put on a list in the future. So until later, I will see you again, guys.